want to jump in.
Okay.
Tiara, what is you have a middle initial? I'm forgetting. J?
Oh, Jay. Yeah, yeah. So I actually, I don't, this is a funny story. Half of my family are immigrants, so I don't even know what my name was actually supposed to be. So they call me Tiara, but it's spelled Tiara, but my middle name is Joy. So that's why it's Tiara Joy, yeah, Tiara J
I
Brown.
love Tiara. You know why? Because it sounds like you're royalty.
That's true, like a little crown. I wear headbands all the time in my day-to-day life. Like
I
ever
would
since I'm
too, like milk it. Like I would be literally milking it using that. Um,
yeah,
so I'm going to ask you. We all know Tiara. It was with Findaway, and
yeah.
was it Findaway in the beginning, and then it became Findaway slash Spotify?
Yeah, so when I first started working at Findaway, it was just Findaway, and then Findaway was half of Findaway was actually acquired by Spotify, because like Forbes reported all of this. So this is all public information,
Okay,
but
yes.
yeah, so half of the audiobook part got sold to Spotify. And I saw this on LinkedIn. I think so. Findaway was audiobooks, and then it was also like Playway products, which is kind of like those MP3 players, but like a book is on them, and you could get them at like libraries and I think schools too. But I didn't work in that department.
Okay.
But that I think I saw on LinkedIn last year. I think Penguin Random House acquired that part
Oh
of the
gosh.
business.
See, that side is the part that I have a I know I have to keep up with it, but it feels so far removed from your everyday thing, and it also induces stress for me, I think. And so I tend to, because it's not in my control, so I can't do anything about it. But and before I start, this call is not going to be about this, but I am very interested. The only thing I'm actually interested in your time with Findaway, was that the customer service I received from you and the communication you gave to people, to narrators, was above and beyond. And then
Oh, thank
having
you.
seen your emails to writers, you equally communicated that much with the writers as well. And I'm really curious about how, because it's quite hard. We know the publishers are busy. We send reach outs and everything. We know how
Yeah.
swamped they are. And the one thing I'd like to touch on about Findaway before we move on to the book side of it is um, how the hell you did it, and also what you learned and what you would like narrators to know about reaching out and working with publishers that maybe they don't all realize. Like,
Okay.
did you
Yeah.
get cold contact letters and all that? I'm interested in that.
So I'll tackle the first part about how I did it. So I have a media background where you juggle a lot of hats, and I actually think that that helped so much. So I went to Ohio University and I studied visual media because I originally wanted to work behind the scenes of television. And when
Oh,
you have a major, yeah, when you have a major like that, you're in, at least they tell you at OU all the time, you're not doing that media major right unless you're in like a million student run productions. So I was in a million, not a billion, but I was in
wow.
multiple student run productions. And like, so I think I related, so I'm not a narrator, but I think I related to the narrators in the aspects of like the production aspect of it. So because like in media school I learned a little bit of animation, I learned editing and stuff like that, and it was video editing, so it wasn't audio mixing because I wasn't like studying to be an audio engineer. But it still kind of gives you, I think, perspective where you can see the narrator's point of view for working on projects
I'd
and
like
stuff
to
like
learn
that.
video editing. I was just talking to a friend. I'd love to learn. I don't know what I would do with it, but was it fun? It seems like it'd be so much fun.
It
Video
is
editing.
it is fun. It depends. You have to like what you're doing because it can
Yeah.
get really tedious. Because with 5 minutes of is many hours. So depending on what you're doing and how difficult it is. But yeah. But so I think that helped me when I communicated with narrators, where especially if like a conflict were to arise, or you're like, hey, I need more time doing this or that. I remembered like just doing media projects where I was like, yeah, things would come up and I would have to troubleshoot. Like this would happen,
Yeah.
and you still want a quality project
Yeah.
to be delivered. So I think that helped with like just having that level of understanding with communicating with narrators, having that background. And I even worked a little bit in media before I landed at Findaway too, outside of college. So definitely helped. And then I think what helped the writing perspective too is also being a writer myself. So I kind of I saw both perspectives, and that I think that helped a lot because I understood writers being like, well, this is my baby and I have
Yeah.
to communicate, like I want it to be voiced a certain way. And working on media projects and stuff like that, you have like writers, you have a lot of different, like you have writers, you have the actors, you have
Did you
the
hear, so
directors.
you heard what the writers said about us, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, what'd they
I
say? What was their feedback? Most
it was different for every project. Well, a
but any
lot of time,
helpful hints, anything that came out of it?
well, yeah, well, a lot of it was different for every project. A lot of writers would communicate like sometimes um their feedback was based on like what they had already imagined the book to sound like before hiring someone.
Yeah.
So whether the feedback was good or bad, it was already going to be from like that tilted perspective. So that helped me communicate with them because I understood it was like, when you write a book, it's like your baby. Like, I get it. And I think what helped me communicate with both, having the writer perspective, knowing the production perspective. I know some writers had and this is with anyone, so I'm not like demonizing writers. Some writers did have, I think, trouble communicating what they wanted from narrators and stuff like that. Like some of their feedback wasn't like, hey, you got to give me more details so I can help you communicate this because,
Yeah, and that's a big part
and
of our job. We have to
yeah,
communicate with a lot of writers individually. So yeah, we know that.
yeah. So I think knowing both, and also I think that helped. And also knowing both, I would also just one-on-one would communicate with writers and would tell them realistically. So for anyone that doesn't know, when I did all this, I would after casting would hook up like the writer would pick the narrator. I would send out the contracts and I would help everyone from there. I always try to give writers a very realistic goal of like, this is how long your book is gonna take, like with the length and the narrator's like time schedule. To be honest, so narrators don't know this. To help with that, when I would ask them, hey, how long do you think it would take you to do this, I automatically added another week or two for writers for
Oh my God.
troubleshooting.
Do you know how many
I
times I've sent them
automatically,
apologetic emails because I'm going to be 2 hours late, maybe?
and that's why when I would get those with different people, everyone's like, Tiara's so nonchalant. She was just like, it's fine, just whenever you get it. It was because I already baked that in because I assumed that that was going to happen anyway, just knowing how productions are.
Yeah.
I've never been on a production where we didn't run late at least a little bit. So I just automatically assumed. And if it's a time or early, what a great treat for the authors. Like I automatically was
We
like,
had no idea.
no, I intentionally, yeah, I intentionally was like, cool. But what's the date? All right, go to the author and be like, okay, so I would add on like
Oh,
another
that's
week,
so funny.
sometimes week and a half, 2 weeks. If I added 2 weeks or something, most of the time it was a week. But if I lied and it was like 2 weeks, that meant it was like a 15-hour book. That means like the troubleshooting. This is going to be a very long book.
Yeah.
Maybe we need more than a week
Yeah.
troubleshooting. Um, but I think that helped with the hats and stuff like that. Like I tried to give everyone just realistic expectations, and just try to help with communication, like I said, coming from like the production perspective, and also communicating to authors sometimes, like, hey, I know your book is only like 4 hours. It does not take 4 hours to near, like, there are different takes, you have to edit it, you have to go through reviews, so like this will not be done in a day.
I know. So I interviewed Simon Vance last week, and he was like, "Oh, I work such and such hours, and I do 2 finished hours a day." This is for the audience. We are not Simon Vance. I don't think any of us are. And I go, "How fast are you doing that hour?" He goes, "Oh, it takes me for every hour about an hour and 10 minutes." And I got to tell you, Tiara, every single time I've gone in the booth after that interview, I'm sitting here. I know Joel goes, "I can confirm I am not Simon Vance." I am sitting in the booth going, "How the hell is he doing that?"
Yeah. No, there are special people that can do such things. Most people are not the special people. Like so I'm a nerd, so as a writer, I like watching interviews with other writers. I saw or it was George R. R. Martin talking to Stephen King, and George R. R. Martin was just like, "How on earth do you write books this fast? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you drinking? Like,
Yeah.
how are you doing this?" I feel same way about like James Patterson. Like every like what couple of months something but comes out. I was like, "Sir, how are you
But do
doing?"
you know how some of them are doing it? And I won't
Well,
say names. Well, I mean, it was actually on a TV show. I was naive and I didn't have a clue. And I can't be sued for this because they said it on, well, I won't say the name. Somebody mentioned a big writer, one of those, how are they doing so many books? They're having a book every week. And they go, "You do know that he has like graduate students in other countries writing his books for him."
I
And I
heard.
found out they just sell their name. They do a contract that they're like the mentor or something, and someone else writes the book, and it comes out as a so and so book. And that's how they're doing so many books. I'm not saying the ones you
Yeah.
said. I don't want to get sued.
No one's saying that. You've heard that certain authors have done that, and we are not naming
It's
names.
like an accepted thing in the practice and nothing illegal about it. And but as a reader, I was horrible. I was like kind of felt betrayed. Like I'm buying the book because I thought you wrote it.
Yeah.
Not you like maybe had a phone call with the person and said, "Yeah, sounds great." You know, and also it's like I think part of it is like what narrators say to other narrators. Some narrators were saying that they run it through positron before they submit the book to publishers so that they look like they don't make any mistakes. And other narrators didn't like that because, like, guess what you're doing? You're changing the playing field. So that's now what's expected, you to completely
Yeah.
proof your own book
Oh,
before you submit
yeah.
it. So it's like they're changing the playing field. That's what's expected, you to write a book every 2 weeks. It's a bestseller. And how are it's like the streaming companies. We give you so much product, nobody can keep up. So you
Yeah.
can't keep up with the people that have graduate students all over the world writing books, whereas you're slaving away at your like close to your heart trilogy that like you're killing yourself to get done properly. And okay, but let's get to the exciting part. Oh wait, I still want to ask, did
Oh,
people
oh
ever
yeah.
reach out to you with cold contacts, like,
Um, so
and if
yes. Oh,
so?
sometimes people did. Yeah, I can answer this really fast.
Okay.
Sometimes people did while I was working there. My advice, I guess then and it is now, that is that it really just depends. Like it's all about your demo reel, and having a well edited demo reel as a narrator. Like at least that's what my experience was. It was just all about that, just because when I guess when we did casting, or when or at least when Findaway did casting, I don't know which we'll talk about Spotify, but when casting happened with Findaway, and or authors would try to look at like try to find a narrator, it was all about like, oh, how does this person sound? Does it sound well edited? Like, just is there like background noise, or does it sound super clean? So it was all about that, and then also up making sure your reel just has the genre that and the mood that like that you want to like do books in and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I think I had experiences with that where it was like, oh hey, I recognize this narrator, and they were like, oh, but they're not in, they're real, or they're I can't think of the word for it, but they're like demo reel, or their clips or whatever, audio clips are not in the genre I do, but I'd be like, yo, no, but they're really good. I believe in them.
I have a feeling that
So
I actually have to pivot and do a little bit more of that because I have a lot of like romance in my portfolio. I have a lot of other things as well, but I only really have thrillers on my demos because that's what I love. But it is a good point that it could put other people off. Okay, now, so before we get into the pivot to the writing and the books, can you please tell me about 10-year-old Tiara?
oh, 10-year-old me was pretty crazy. Actually, it's pretty ironic I became a writer. 10-year-old me hated books.
Really?
Yeah,
What
well,
did you like to do when you were 10?
oh, well, I like storytelling. I just like to read. But I ended up liking to read somewhere in the fifth grade. But when I first turned 10, I did not like reading. But I was a pretty timid kid. I was bullied a lot and stuff like that as a
Oh,
kid. But I mean it's fine. I'm not there anymore. But yeah, I was like, well,
the most interesting people were bullied. Do you
yeah,
not
that's
notice
true.
that? The most
Well, yeah, because
interesting,
we're all
cool people now were always the ones that were bullied. And the ones that fit in school never, like, they never end up on an interview anyway.
oh, it's fair. But yeah, so I was bullied, and so just because kids were mean, but and then I did have still like a really really big imagination. Like my teachers predicted, even though I didn't like reading, that I would be a writer one day, just because I like to make stuff up and it was fun. I did end up liking to read eventually when I was 10. I think it was somewhere in the middle of fifth grade, and it was because I hadn't read a book that I really liked yet. Like even the
Yeah.
books that I learned how to read on, I wasn't that interested in. So I thought reading was just kind of boring. And then and there were some books that I thought were okay, but I read this book called Jeremy Thatcher the Dragon Hatcher when I was 10, and that was like the first book I ever read that I couldn't put down. Right. So then I was like, I need to read books that I like.
It took you to a
Now reading
different
is cool.
world.
Yeah,
It
I was
took you
like,
to,
now
I
it's
love that.
cool.
Were you like living in the day when you were 10, or were you thinking about when I grow up, I'm going to be this? Or were you just kind of like, I'm going to go play outside with my friends?
I'm just gonna go play outside with my
Yeah.
friends. I was a typical kid. Like things I was, I wasn't like a deep thinker as a child. I thought about like school, friends, what's on television, and I think that's about as deep as it got. Like that was, but I think that's fine. I don't think like kids should worry about the
That's a good
problems of the world.
childhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I wonder if like I can convince my parents to like eat what I like this snack that's really sugary before dinner. And they'll probably say no, but I wonder if I could like sneak eat this. Like that's what
The weighty questions of life.
yeah, like I wonder if I could sneak eat like I don't know. I've always been like a big kid too. Like and then I think there were some kids I knew that were 10 that like were, and I don't know how many deep thinking 10-year-olds do, but there were definitely some 10-year-olds that thought more about things than I did. I remember we had like this class assignment where it's like if you could have a national holiday, what would you do? And I think other kids had like these significant like history things. I was just like, there should be an ice cream day where I eat ice cream and I don't have to eat vegetables.
Oh my, oh, I love 10-year-old. If Tiara really was royalty and ruled the world, we'd all be having ice cream.
And then I felt a little self-conscious because we had to like stand in front of the class, and I was like, oh, everyone has something significant. Mine's just like about eating food.
But at what age did you, because that's quite a go-getting kind of job, the student films, the media. What age did you pivot that way? When did you start choosing that kind of stuff?
So I'd always wanted to be a writer. So when I was 12, I decided I was like, hey, I think I want to write books and stuff like that. But when I was in high school, and the adults in my life were looking out for me. Like they were, they were just like, "Hey, you sure you want to be like a starving artist?
Yeah,
You
the
want to,
adults in my
you want
life
to,
looked out for me too.
you want to, you want to, you want to do something else, or do you want to be a writer on top of something else?"
There's a nice
So,
job as a dental hygienist going down the street.
so so then for a little bit I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I landed on media and behind the scenes of television because it was another way of storytelling, but like people like that job exists. Like there are camera people, there are editors, there, like these, like it was a more plausible, I think,
There was like
career
a
job.
structure, so you could be, I'm employed, HR
Yeah,
gave me a badge, I have a
yeah,
job, but I still got to do something. But yeah, see, that's kind of how I keep, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about writing. Like I'd love the idea of writing, but like I think I would feel like I'm fooling myself, like I don't have a job.
yeah. And so that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, the both of my life were looking out for me, and from my parents' perspective too. Like my mom's an immigrant, so she's just like, listen, like, and it's an immigrant perspective, like which I don't think is a bad perspective, that you come from this country and you want a better life for your kid, and
Yeah,
you want to make sure your kid achieves that better life. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with that. That's a very honorable perspective. So her thing was, she wasn't discouraging me from being a writer, but she was like, hey, you want to add something else on top of that?
Yeah.
You
Because our parents come from different generations and different
yeah,
situations. So,
yeah.
you
And they
know,
were only trying to look out for me. So I'm not saying this to insult them or anything. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
definitely like, we're trying to like look out for you to make sure you're okay. So like,
yeah.
yeah.
Question. We're known for our quirky questions here, so I'm going to put this one in before we get too far off. Nancy wants to know, what is your current guilty pleasure, culinary, snack, or otherwise?
I okay. So
They like to throw you curveballs on
I
the cup of
really
joe calls.
I really like caramel corn, like caramel popcorn. Like it's a little bit of a problem. Like I
Like the
try not to
candy
buy it.
corn. Like what?
Yes, or like just like caramel, like this popcorn you can buy it and it's like coated in like caramel, like you get at the
Like,
store.
do they have a
Yeah.
toy in the box? What was the name of that? They have a toy
Oh,
in
you
the
mean the
box?
the Jax ones, like the Jax box?
Yeah,
Like
what's
there's
that called? What's that called? I've been out of the
uh
country a long time.
I think just caramel corn or Jackbox. I know Jackbox is a brand of caramel popcorn, but I don't remember. And they would have like little card things in the back. But I really, really like caramel popcorn. It's a little bit of a problem. Like I try not to. Oh yeah, courage. I try not to buy it because I was just like, I will eat way too much of this. It's like it's I buy it every once in a while. I try not to like keep it in my home. Every once in a while I'll buy it because you have to treat yourself like every once in a while.
It's
But
got that
it's not
salt
a
sweet ratio that tricks your brain,
yes,
is what
like you
I've
can't,
heard.
yes, you just gotta keep eating it. And I was just like, yep, I ate salt and rat my teeth out and I let my
They've actually
teeth
done studies.
go.
I think it's on purpose. It tricks your brain
Yeah,
because your brain is searching for more salt because it's got the sweet and it thinks it
yeah.
needs the salt. So your brain literally thinks it needs more and more and more.
Yes, I definitely have seen those studies as well. And it makes a lot of sense why you can't just have one, but
Yeah.
that's why it's just like, well, now I have to exercise self-control, and that's constantly keep this in my home. So I'll buy it every once in a while and then I'll eat it. And I was like, all right, that was my treat for once in a while. We're not buying it again. Like there you go. But that's my guilty pleasure as far as like food. I really, really like that. I also I have a huge sweet tooth. Like I really like baking. Fun fact about me is I love baking. And I think I like baking because I like sweets. I like sugar. Probably a little
Yes.
bit too much.
See, I think you can't, I'm too lazy to bake. I can't stand the mess. Like
You have to
that's
clean as you
everywhere.
go. You have to clean as you go. Like that's the key. But I get it. Like depending what it is, especially if it's something baking where you have to like there's multiple bowls. Like the messiest thing I ever made. There were two things that were like the messiest things I ever made. It was like this s'mores fudge. super messy because you have to, at least the recipe I have is like you have to use like the like a huge thing of like the marshmallow fluff that gets everywhere. And when it's in the
Yeah.
bowl, you have to soak it overnight. Like there's no there, you can't scrub it out. You
I
have to
don't I
soak it in
don't like
overnight.
that stuff.
You can't
You know
do
how
it.
they had clay in school and they would like get the clay out and all the kids, I used to hate that. I used to be like, you, and I would like tell the teacher, you do know you're gonna have to clean this all up afterwards. It's gonna get on our fingers. It's like I'm not good. I don't like food that like you can't just eat with a fork. I don't like things that like you have to, yeah. So, but for the bakers of you in the world, thank you, because you bake for the rest of us. Okay, so we've got you in media and we've got you
Yeah.
doing all this, and I'm interested to hear, had you, before you pivoted from Findaway to being a full-time writer, had you already been working on your, is this your first novel, the
Yeah.
book one? Had you already been working on it or had you dreamt of working on it?
Oh, so no, I had already been working on it for actually a really, really long time. Because I thought of the idea for the book when I was actually a kid, when I was like early teens, preteens,
Oh,
and
I
I tried to
love
write it
that.
back then. Yeah, and it was very I wrote it very badly back then. It was the whole trilogy, 125 pages. I was going through a Shakespeare phase, didn't know what I was doing. Things would just happen, no character development. But the story was there, and then when I became an adult, one of my friends was just like, "Hey, remember when you tried to write that one book when we were kids? Like, whatever happened to that?" And then that sparked me to because I had printed it off and put it in a binder, so it was like my version of the book.
I love
I
that.
re Yeah, I reread it and I was just like, "Oh, I have to write this as an adult. Like, what am I doing?" So then I spent years writing it. It took me the whole process for putting out book one probably took me about 7 years, but that was because one was saving up money to do it because I'm self-published, but two, I originally was going to write all of it as one book, and I'm the type of writer like I will outline it. I actually kind of use the what I originally wrote as a kid as an outline, but I will write like the ending, and then I'll write this over here and write this over there and there, and then like stitch it all together. And I soon realized that this was a trilogy and not one book. So it took me a long time because I was technically writing all three books at once.
Right, right.
And then I was like, okay, this is three books. Let me like solely concentrate where I'm gonna cut off like book one and just work on that. And then I was finally able to get that out. So
Yeah.
I had been working on it the whole time
What
that
was
I
your
was
routine? Did you have a
underway.
set hours you did it because you were working a full-time job as well? How did you work that out time-wise to get it done?
I try to work on it like a couple of hours after work, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. I didn't do it every day. At one point, sometimes I did it every day, but I realized I would burn myself out
Mm.
doing that because you're working full time and then to come home and then like, oh, let's hop back on that screen, you know.
So you weren't working from home, you were going to the office and then coming home.
So I was going into the office until the pandemic happened. And so
Okay.
then that's when working from home started happening. But even so, like it was still a lot of work. Being
Yeah.
like working from home, what I would do is I would be like, all right, let me like close the computer, go eat something, and then I would open up my personal computer and work on it. So that was still taxing just being on a screen like all day and stuff like that. When I went into the office, I would eat something and work on it right away just because I worked about with I didn't live that far away from work, but with traffic, it was about a 40-minute drive. So at least I was away from like that was like my break. And
Yeah.
then but I only did it 3 or 4 times a week because I didn't want to burn myself out. There were some moments where I was doing it like every day, and then I realized that I was like burning myself out. So, um, I tried to limit it like 3 or 4 times a week, and then it would be like 2 or 3 hours outside work. If it was more, within like 3 hours, I was on a writing run. I was just like, hey, this seed is popping. I'm in it. I gotta get this down. Like there are a couple moments like that where you're just in it and you're like you can see it, you can visual, like you're just in that moment. So
Yeah.
so that would happen. And then but I would I tried to stick to that schedule, and then there were days where I didn't want to write anything. And then I think when that would happen, I would go through it and then just like, I don't know, work on grammar or something.
So
Because
you
if
would still
I don't
sit
have,
down. I like that you still gave yourself structure because I'm fascinated by this book about famous writers and they had rituals. And one famous one, I can't remember, she lay in her bed with like booze and like cigarettes and some sort of chocolate or something. And that's when she would write every single time. Like and Stephen King, I think they said he had a certain ritual. I can't remember what it was. And a writer I just interviewed said that he wrote at the same time every day. And I saw a movie where this girl was like not writing, not writing. So somebody told her, you got to be there. So she didn't have any inspiration, but she still opened the computer and sat
yeah,
there. And I like that. I like that because it's what we were saying about feeling like you have a job. You have to create your own structure, right? When
yeah,
did you
like,
start to think of yourself as a writer? Because you have to give yourself, I see a lot of writers on Twitter, and some of them, it sounds like they haven't given themselves permission to feel like they're writers. Like,
I, I think, I think I gave myself permission to fully feel like a writer when I started the process of self-publishing, because then it was just like, it was actually happening. Like I was contacting editors, I was trying to lay out a plan. And mind you, it's the first time I ever self-published a book. So my plan was like, I was just like, well, I guess we'll see how this goes, because I half time I didn't know what I was doing. But
where did
but
you learn? Did you just like watch a lot of blogs or
yeah, I watched a lot of YouTube. I read blogs. I looked up interviews of self-published narrators, or not narrators, authors, to see what they did, and then try to come up with a plan that would work for me, like customize what they did to fit me and stuff like that. So that's what I did. But when I started going into the motion of that, I guess I couldn't deny that I was a writer. I'm like currently trying to put out a book, and then also I had to tell people that like, hey, I wrote a book. I'm a writer. I will say I wish I was better at that, because like writing a book and like it was always that thing I was doing in the background, but I didn't think to tell people. And then I started telling people, and they're like, Tiara, I've known you for how long? And I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, oops.
the
I may
marketing?
have forgot to, yeah, I was like, I may have forgotten to mention.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah.
nothing personal to anyone. It was just like, I legitimately just didn't think to mention it, because it was that thing I was doing in the background. And I don't think it was until I started pushing the self-publishing, like I'm actually getting the rope, like my ducks in order to do that. I think it was still like mentally that distant thing in the future. I was like, oh, I hope to be a published writer one day. And then but when you're in the motion of doing it, I feel like my brain couldn't deny it. So I would say when that started happening, when the motions of actually starting to get it out.
The one of the writers we interviewed was Dan Padavana, and he did a lot of Amazon ads. And he said that that really turned it around for him money wise. He's got like a lot on his blog about like the making the money part of the book. What day did your book come out? Like, do you remember the actual day? Did you like lift a glass or have a cake or something?
Yeah, so the day my book came out was February 28th. I had lunch with a friend. So I did that. And then I took a break because I was like, after all this work of
You're exhausted.
self-publishing, yeah, I was still working at like Findaway Spotify. So I just took a day off, and then I took that day off. I had lunch with a friend, and I kind of just chilled out. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, did you celebrate?" And I was just not on that day. I relaxed. I did
Actually, it's good it was before
yeah.
Find a Way, isn't it? Because then you had that, so you didn't have to worry. You're like, I'm already a full-time writer.
Yeah. So I definitely adopted that title while I was still working full time, just because like I yeah, my book is out now. And but yeah, so I think when I was in the motions of putting it out, that's when I yeah. And it was fun. Putting it out was fun. I hired a company to do the cover art of my book, like
It's
ebook launch.
beautiful.
Oh yeah, ebook launch did a great job. I am not affiliated with them. They are not paying me to say this. I
Yeah,
just think they did a great job, so I will give them
beautiful
credit.
cover.
Yeah.
Was your mom proud? I bet your mom was proud.
She was both her and my dad were just like, yeah. It's like we've never had a writer in the family before. And they were so yeah, they were very proud, and it was very sweet. Like a lot of people in like my community were very proud. Like but a lot of the I'm very like I do a lot in like my like I can't say words in my local church and stuff like that, and they were proud of me too. And it was very heartwarming. It was very sweet. Like my friends were happy. I have a couple of friends that have known me since high school, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good! Like it's finally happening for you." So it was very sweet. I felt so much support and love, like more than I like imagined, and it was very sweet, just heartwarming.
Well, because I think maybe that's what I hear and I see so many writers on Twitter. That's where I see most of the writers' conversations. Is I'm not really
Yeah.
a big Twitter person, but I pop in and read and I think that's a feeling. It's like a lot of people have this dream of saying something and putting it out in the to the world. And but the world is like scared because they don't feel like they can do it themselves. So the world says, "Oh, that's impossible. It's impossible." But then once you do the thing, you've shown the world that it's possible. So you've made it possible. So then you're making it possible for them too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that. I think knowing that other people self-published their book was like, well, if they could do it, like, why can't I do
Yeah.
it too? If I have a plan, and a lot of authors are very like happy to give out information about like, well, this is how I personally did it. A lot of authors online will tell you like, well, these are the mistakes that I made, so maybe don't do it this way. So there's So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share my process and stuff like that too, but it's, everyone's so willing to share how they did it and like what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and every author is different and genres are different too. So sometimes what works for one author won't work for
Yeah.
another author, and that's just the way it is. It's, not personal. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but
Well, but you made me think
yeah.
because the writer that I said did Amazon ads. I remember him saying he originally was doing horrors, but he
Mm-hmm.
didn't make a lot of money. And then he pivoted to thrillers and suddenly he did.
Yeah.
So if I was a new writer starting out, I when he was talking, I was like, oh, I would do Amazon ads because like that's how you make. But then I thought maybe that's just thrillers because they're all very specific, aren't they? They all have different audiences, different.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah,
you have to go to your like target demographic, and sometimes your target demographic isn't where the other writers' target demographic
yeah.
is, especially if you're writing different genres.
So your process for book two,
Yeah.
is it
Currently
different
working on
than,
book two.
is it,
Um
are you already, did you say you're done with it?
no, I said I'm currently
Oh,
working on book two. Not yet. I wish
uh,
I was done with it. That'd be very exciting, but it's not done yet.
is it the same process as it was with book one, or have you refined things or,
Um, it's the same process, only that I have a lot more time to write book two. I will say, book two is a bit more challenging to write because so I wrote I don't know if I say this, so I wrote a young adult fantasy novel, and which takes place in its own like separate world, so it's not taking place in planet Earth, but it's modeled like Earth, kind of like Game of Thrones is like, or Song of Ice and Fire is like Earth, but not.
yeah,
um and in book two, the main character goes through a lot of character development because some choices were made in book one that maybe were not the best choices, because I also like writing characters that are like, oh, there are consequences for your choices. So some choices were made. And then like, oh, look, here are the consequences
Sounds
of book
like my
two.
life.
But
Some choices were made.
some choices happened. And in book two, I'm writing it. I'm happy that I have the extra time or more time to write book two, because it is proving to be more challenging, just because the main character goes through a lot of character development, and from writing perspective, you want it to be believable, and you want to pace it out correctly, and just pace it out correctly, make it be like, okay, is this too far? Is this not too far? Like all of that, and so that has been challenging. And then it's also getting a little bit more into the weeds of the world. I feel like book one is more I mean, it has a story arc and everything, but it is a little bit more of like an introduction and stuff like that. So I feel like book two gets into the weeds a little bit
So
more. So I'm
how much
happy.
of you is in it? How much
How
do
much
you take from your own life and your own personality? And do you have your friends or maybe the guy that pissed you off at the grocery store get murdered?
so so I would say the main character is nothing like me. So when I was a kid, I wrote stories all the time, but I definitely was doing a lot of like self inserts, and my friends called me out on it. So I was just like, well, I'm gonna write a character that most definitely does not have my personality.
Why
So
did
the
they
main
call
character.
you out on it? Are you not supposed to put your personality in the main character?
Oh, well, I don't know. We're teenagers, and your teenage friends will call you out on anything. So,
Good point. Good point.
uh, So the main character, her name is Alexandria Stecklar, and definitely not. I mean, I think a little bit of hers in me, but for the most part, it's not my personality. I'm indecisive, and sometimes takes me forever to like do things. She will not think about things, and just in the moment be emotional and just do a thing and be like, oh, maybe that was a bad idea. So
Oh,
like
she's me.
she'll do that. She oh, and then I guess I should say what the story's about to make her personality make sense. So she grew up also very away from the outside world, because so she's telekinetic and she lives physically underground during a time of war between like her kind, so like people with psychic powers, not telling the future psychic powers, but like telepathic telekinesis.
Yeah.
And then their neighboring country has like people like the magic folk, and like so they're on and off war, on and off conflict. And her parents, she lives with her parents and her older sister, and they live physically underground. Like her parents are just trying to keep her safe, but she is very just me kind of hot-headed, just acts emotionally sometimes, very much a teenage girl, and it's just like, dude, sometimes you need to chill out. Me, definitely not me. I mean, I can be an emotional person sometimes too, but I'm very indecisive. I'm like, it takes me forever sometimes to decide
Yeah, see, I
things
don't
and
ever,
weigh
ever,
it
ever
and
take time. I immediately decide on something because I think I heard when I was young that, the woman in Vogue, the head of Vogue, Anna Wintour,
oh
said that,
yeah.
like, you put a dress in front of her, if it's gray or if it's red, she doesn't care. She chooses one just because it was about making the decision was the important thing. So, to my detriment, I believed that. So I can see that being a bingeable series. I could see that being so. Did you ever consider querying agents or publishers with it, or did you always know you wanted to go indie, or is it something you might look at in the future?
Oh, so I definitely did do that, but I kept getting rejected. So I was just like, but I still believed in the story. Like, when I was a kid, the earlier version, like my parents read it, my friends read it, and everyone really
Would they all
liked
get
it.
rejected? I mean, doesn't
Yeah,
Stephen King or someone have a wall of like hundreds of rejections they got? They all get
I think
rejected.
so. Oh yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I knew, like I believe the story was good. Like some of my teachers even read it. One of my friends, I'll give her a shout out because she's a really amazing teacher, Miss Badar. She wasn't my teacher, but she was I have a friend and we're still really good friends today. She like moved, but only moved about like 20 minutes away. So we still became friends. We're still friends. And plus, since we were teenagers, like we could like drive and stuff like that. So we still remained friends. And that was her, I think that was her English teacher. And she even gave a copy of her English when we were kids, because I had like the binder and stuff like that. And the English teacher liked it too. So it was just like, I think it's a good story. Agents will reject things for multiple reasons. So I was like, if
Yeah.
I could keep querying, or I could do it myself. And it wasn't an overnight decision. It took me a while to decide that. So then that's how I did. But originally I did try to pursue traditionally
Well,
publishing.
can
And
you
I was
not
just,
do both? What happens if you publish it yourself and then query? Can you not do that? I mean, I'm just trying to get my head around it. I heard somebody there was a big debate about, I don't want to keep saying I heard this on Twitter because I get the impression I'm always on Twitter. It's not that I'm always on Twitter. It's that the only thing I know about writers is what I hear from the writers I narrated for, or
yeah.
I happen to see them on Twitter. So I'm not on
Um,
Twitter. Like, I'm busy, I promise.
I the advice I was always told that if you traditionally publish a book in a series, it's easier if all the books in that series remain traditionally published, or if you self-publish a book in that series, like the first book, it's easier to just continue doing that, because because now you have like rights, the battle of rights involved and stuff like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But you can because you do give up some of your rights when you traditionally publish, and then self-publishing you keep all of them. But I mean, I would have no problem if I wrote another series and that other series got traditionally published. Like that would be fine. Like I would be okay with doing both, like however life wants to
Yeah,
play
see,
that
I think
out.
I would
Yeah.
come down the same if I were you. I know too many writers that are indie that publish themselves and they're doing really, really, really well. And they become their own business owners. And but saying that, I would never say no to a publisher. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. So
it'd be nice to have both.
yeah.
Self-publish your first, because you're going to be, how long do you think it'll take you to write the second book?
Um, I don't know if this is gonna happen. I'm hoping to be done with the second book like the last day of the year this year. I don't know if that's gonna happen,
And when did
but
you
I'm
start?
hoping.
When did you start?
Well, I kind of, because like I didn't know that there was gonna be a trilogy. Some of it was already kind of written when
Yeah, I know, but that's
yeah.
just the outline. When did you sit down and actually start on book two, would you say?
Um, I would say probably earlier, like not too long after book one came out, because even when I was done writing it and formatting and stuff like that, then I like was spending a lot of time into like trying to market it instead of like writing anything. But when it actually like came out the last day of February, I think I took like a break for a month, and then was just like, okay, like let me actually try
So
and like
April. So you write a book
yeah.
every 9 months.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so.
So
Yeah, because breaks
if
are important. Breaks are
yeah,
awesome because you don't want to burn yourself out.
so you could easily have a career where you're writing a book every 9 months, take 3 months off a year, go off to Ibiza or whatever. And so that's a book a year. That's quite a nice career.
Well, the editing process takes time. So, I should rephrase that. I'm hoping to be done with me drafting the book by the end of this year, and then you go into editing. That's like months in itself. So
Yeah,
maybe
so
a book
you
every
have a
year and a
shorter
half, two
vacation in
years.
Ibiza.
Yeah. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years is
And you'll
probably
also
more.
get you'll also get faster the more
That's
you
true.
do. Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Like,
So we're looking at a book a year. And then when your first book's televised,
oh,
which
that would be cool.
maybe 5 years, 3, 4 years, takes a while, I'm sure.
That would be quite cool. That'd be very
When it,
cool.
so 10 years from now, you're going to be like on a beach somewhere, writing blogs for other writers and everything, huh?
No, that would be cool. I have no problem like sharing like my experience and the things that I've learned and stuff like that with people. So I would think I'd have fun doing that. And yeah, and writing's fun. I think it's literally just putting your imagination like on a page, and I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. And I don't think writing is as difficult as people make it out in their heads. I think the hardest part is just like sticking to it, just because it does, truthfully, it does take a lot of time. Like it does take a lot of time, and just like sticking to it, I think, is the hardest part.
And faith. I think you have to believe enough in yourself
Yeah. Oh
to
yeah.
do it.
If you don't think it'll ever happen, I'm a firm believer of that. If you don't think that you can do something, then you won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
So you have to just, be like, you know what? I can do it. Because and no writer is perfect. Like I hope to keep getting better as a writer,
Yeah.
I've heard a writer say, like, I hope the first book I write is my worst book, which is fair because they're just like, no, I want to get better with each book. So I think it's also giving yourself like the grace to be like, hey, like, I'm gonna do it. I may not be perfect, but that is okay. I'm still gonna do it.
Well, somebody said that about lives. I used to like take walks and like pour my heart out on whatever, live social media or whatever. And somebody said that the other day. They said, "Well, I don't want to, you know, it's got to be perfect because I don't want to look back and be embarrassed." And I thought, but you know what? Like that's like the best gift you can give me. I want to be embarrassed. I want to look back and I was thinking about it in form of the Joe calls. I started these over 2 years ago. I was a totally different person. I probably whined quite a lot as well. Plus, I thought I was cross-eyed. I was like a whole different person when I started doing these interviews. And I hope that I'm cringingly embarrassed about the interviews I did last month. Because that means that like I've changed. Why would you not
Yeah.
want to? A lot of narrators are like, oh, I don't want to, I wish I could get rid of the first book I did. What? You never want to get better than your first book? Oh, I love that, Joel. Life is but a series of embarrassments. Yes.
It's
And that's
not
a good
wrong.
thing. That's a good
Yeah.
thing, though.
You just
And you
gotta
can
learn how
keep,
to laugh at yourself.
and you revised, you took your dreams from a kid and then rewrote them. That's like, I mean, on like a wider level, talking about like life, but that is quite something. You took your
Thank you.
dreams from your childhood and literally rewrote them and sold them. That's like massive. So how do you feel about reviews? Do you read
Um,
them? Do you worry about them? Do they upset you? Do you ignore them?
Reviews are a struggle. I'm still trying to get reviews. Like, but I guess I feel like I can't get bad because I feel like I'm getting a taste of my own medicine in the sense that I will like read things and do things, and people are like, oh, hey, leave me a review, and I don't do it. And now I'm just like, oh no, I'm on the other end. So I was like, I'm getting a little taste of my own medicine. So I'm still struggling to get reviews. The reviews that I have had so far have been pretty positive. So that's good. I know one day I will get a negative review because everyone does, and it's okay. So knowing that, I'm hoping that it's not like that I won't be too sad and stuff about it. And plus I heard someone say this too, like negative reviews aren't like a bad thing because sometimes it is constructive criticism, like, oh, maybe I really should work on that so I can be a better writer. So I'm still struggling. So if anyone on this call wants to buy my book and leave me a review,
Well, have you tried
I will.
the book bub thing? Have you tried the book bub or whatever people? Because I'll tell you what, when I first started narrating, I thought like I'm fine. I've had reviews from like theater and everything. What can they say to me? And it's a trick because you get the really, really nice ones and then you get hooked. And then somebody comes along. I think it was, I should never be allowed to speak out loud again.
Oh, whoa, that's so mean.
So that day, it was like my first book that was out on Audible. So that day, I got another narrator and we're partners. And it's what you said, you have to be open to feedback. So every month or so, they check mine and I check theirs for new reviews. And if there's like a theme, like if I develop a weird twitch in my voice or something I need to know about, they'll tell me in a
Yeah,
professional way. And if they do something weird, I'll tell them. But then I don't see the rest of them. So if some guy in some weird state eating pizza mad at the world, hates my voice because it's not girly enough, decides to like write a long litany, I'm not going to know. My partner is going to go, oh, they said that you were slow. or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just think maybe kind of protecting, because another thing I see on Twitter, I hate Twitter too. I give the wrong impression. But another thing I saw writers saying a lot was they'd be crushed. They'd be crushed by like one bad review. So if anybody does read, give us the name of the whole book again.
Oh, yes, the Tales of Alexandria Stecklar Locket. I actually have the book, so this is what it looks like.
Yes, then read and do not be afraid to leave a review. Are you going to
Yes.
hire a narrator for it? Are you going to narrate it yourself?
I thought about that. I just we're still I'm still trying to
I'm
I
not
spent
begging
a
for a
lot. I
job
know.
because I'm like the opposite of YA. I'm not like I couldn't get that job. I couldn't get that gig if I tried. But
I have been asked that question a lot, and I do think that I will do that down the line. I don't know if I will self narrate or hire someone else to. I just having worked in the audiobooks before, which is very expensive, and I spent a lot of money self-publishing the first book, and I'm still trying to
yeah.
budget like how to self-publish the second one. So it will happen in the future. I don't know when. Um,
When
I'm
you get a
taking
good
caution that
trilogy out there and you get someone that
yeah,
believes in it, and and yeah, and as you said, you get the right voice. If you don't want to do it yourself, you get like a good voice for that genre. So, okay, I'm not going to let you off the hook. I've got a
what up?
final question for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
Famous last words. If you could leave the studio audience that might be watching this in 60 years or so, you're on that beach in
Oh,
Ibiza, and if you could leave them with one thing, what would you like them to know?
about like writing in
Life,
general.
writing, dreams, anything.
I guess I would just say live your life and then just do it. I've been asked before, like if I had advice for writers, I would a lot of my advice would always say just live your life because I feel like and I would say this stretches beyond writing, but just any type of creative field. You draw a lot of inspiration from like having experiences. So don't forget to live your life. And then also if you want to do something, just do it. Like the scariest thing that happens is that you just have to try again. Like
I like that.
that's the scary. I mean, yeah, that's the scariest thing that ever. So don't psych yourself out. Like, no, and trust me, I'm a very indecisive person. I psych myself out a lot. Like, I went skiing for the first time and I psyched myself out. like doing that. I eventually went down the hill though, but I did. Well, I psyched myself out. Went down the hill, didn't psych myself out. Then I fell and then psyched myself out again. And then I'm gonna try again this winter and
But
try
do
to
you,
psych myself out.
so
Yeah,
you are
but
going to try again.
yeah,
I mean, did
yeah,
you
but
enjoy it, or did you enjoy it, or
oh yeah, skiing is great.
yeah?
It was a lot of fun. It was I have friends that ski, so I they like taught me how to they like taught me how to sorry that was my phone. They taught me how to do it, and then we went skiing in New York for at least it was my first time going skiing in New York, and I did it, and then I was like I psyched myself out, then did it, then super fell, like super fell. I was wearing a helmet, so I was
Ouch.
okay,
See,
and
no way would
then
I do it ever.
and
I'm
then and
terrified.
then and then I was like, yeah, I can't do this. And then I knew it, but then we were only there for like a day and a half. I think I if we stayed there another day, I think I would have tried again the following day, but I like psyched myself out. So I'm saying this to be like, I get it. I psych myself out in things, but you gotta find the strength to just like to try again. If it doesn't work out, the worst that really happens is that you try again and then you analyze why it didn't work and then now you have a better shot of it working. So live life and then just do it. And the worst that happens is you do it again, but you'll probably if you have to do it again, you're probably more likely to do it because then learn from the mistakes that you made, and that's okay if you make mistakes. I think I heard someone say like mistakes are just life lessons that you learn from, and then that's okay. And then you can help other people. Like when I was a media major, I used to joke, and I think this is true to life, that it was good when we had media projects, when things went wrong, because then we
Yeah.
learned how to troubleshoot. Like we learned how to troubleshoot, and we also learned don't do X, and now we know why.
I
Now
heard
we
that
can
the
tell
other
someone
day. I
else.
heard I heard a businessman or something who was talking about a project, and he said that's how you roll things. It was a scientist or something. You want things to go wrong because that's how you learn. And you just taught me something because your example of skiing, I immediately said, I'm like, oh, I agree with you completely. Try everything. I'm brave. And then you said skiing. I was like, oh, I would never do that. And then I thought, but wait a minute. Maybe you should ask yourself how many things you would never do, how many things you wouldn't try that you've just like made up a story in your head that's not something you would try. Like,
Yeah,
look at
and
that again.
be safe. Like I wore a helmet. Like guys, I didn't just and I didn't go down the most dangerous hill. So I was like, be safe,
Yeah, I still
be
won't ever
safe.
ski,
But
but maybe other things. Examples. I might question it. I'm too scared. I'm terrified of like hills, and we're talking with no snow on them.
yeah, skiing. Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely a rush. I will say that it's definitely a rush. I have to. My friends, they want to go somewhere else to go skiing. So now I told them I would put myself through ski boot camp this winter so I could like learn to not psych myself out. But I use an example to be like, hey, I do it too. I psych myself
Or
out too.
you
So
could
this is
fake an
not.
injury. And don't they
Oh
have
no,
those lodges and they have those alcoholic drinks with marshmallows in them and you can wear a cute outfit and hang out and wait for them to finish?
that's that's true. I could
That's,
do that too.
yeah. Let me know if you want me to edit this bit out and then you can use it. They won't know the difference. Tiara, this has been a joy. And I
Yeah.
can't believe we got to talk to you after your first novel of
Yeah.
many. And because
Oh,
pretty
thank
soon
you.
you'll be too big and busy, you'll be hiring people to write. You know what I'm saying? But you're the perfect combination of grounded, but sociable as well. Do you
Oh,
see what
thank
I'm
you.
saying? And it's a
Yeah.
great, it's you've got the creative artist, but the understanding, but you approach things in a business way as well. And that's a definite road to success. So I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see. I'm not kidding you. I can't wait to see a book a year. We're looking, you can quote me on that one.
All right.
You're
We'll
sitting here
try.
going, shut
We'll
up.
try. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, we'll try. I was
I
thinking two
told you I
years.
needed editing time.
That editing process takes a while, but like the back
Are
and
you
forth.
not listening?
But we'll see. If I could do a book here, that would be very cool. I would
I have
that would be
faith.
very cool.
I have faith in you. I think the trilogy, we're gonna blink and it's gonna be out. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's
thanks for
been
having me
wonderful. I'm
on.
so glad we
Yeah.
got to meet finally. I feel like I've known Tiara for years, as do you all from Findaway. So it's so nice to meet you in person finally.
My phone keeps going off. Yes, it was. I'm so happy I finally got to meet you too, because like most of our exchanges were via email, so there was no like face to face. It was just like via like computer messaging.
But you were like the voice of Findaway. You were lovely.
Aw, thank
So
you. That
it's been a
makes me
joy.
happy. Aw, thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. I
Thank you
definitely
for
enjoyed this
coming.
conversation. Oh, thank you.
The video will be up soon, and you won't get rid of us that easily. So I can't wait to see your new books. Bye, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Mwah! Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.